Just pull up Spotify, and this is obviously what we're going to be talking about. Central Cee, is it sort of a monopoly? Is it a one-man army right now of UK rap? Obviously, he's the biggest a UK rapper's ever been, so people might be thinking that. Album's been out a couple of days. We've already got 2 to 3 million streams on basically every song. It's already surpassed 500 million streams, which is crazy. Obviously, a lot down to these 2 songs right here. The only songs when I've been playing this album that I've been missing out, honestly, are Gen Z Love and Must Be. But yeah, obviously, some people might be thinking that UK rap's a bit of a monopoly now, mainly because he's dominating so much. We haven't had domination really like this. No Glaze, glazing heavy. It's true, bro. It's true. We haven't had someone dominating like this ever, so it's hard to compare. I think the reason a lot of people might be saying that it's a monopoly, or people may think it's a monopoly right now, is because there really isn't much competition, and because he's doing so much better than the rest. So for example, if we take someone like Dave, who I would say is probably the second biggest UK rapper after Central Cee right now, Dave is sort of the one. When they mention Central Cee, they usually mention Dave. If I take you to his album, obviously, look, numbers crazy on Psychodrama. This is definitely his most successful album. Central Cee could end up catching this. He could end up catching the streaming numbers on Psychodrama. But Dave isn't really the one I really want to talk about, because although he hasn't been dropping music, he's managed to stay relevant. A lot of people are excited for the new Dave album. They want to know when Dave is dropping. A lot of people think that the Dave album's dropping this year. I would have to agree, bro. If he doesn't drop this year, that's 4 years, bro. And at that point, I think people are just... they're not going to get impatient. They're just going to get a bit frustrated that these fans, bro, a lot of his like 18-year-old fans right now, bro, the last time he dropped music, they were 14. They were like in year 7. Now they're finishing high school. When you deep it like that, it's crazy. It's crazy that they've had like barely any music to go off. The reason why it's kind of becoming a monopoly is because of the lack of competition, because of the lack of big names a few years ago who have essentially disappeared off the face of the earth music-wise. A lot of them doing stuff outside of music. So for example, AJ Tracey, if I just take you to albums, Secure the Bag 2017, 2019 album, Deluxe, Secure the Bag 2, 2021, another album, and then a string of releases in 2023. But since the Flu Game album in 2021, it has sort of slowed down musically. Yoga Bonito, which obviously was a hit this year, you know, you can see the amount of songs that he's been dropping has definitely slowed down. Why? I don't know. I don't know if AJ Tracey's got something on outside of music. One of you guys let me know. That is just one example of many. For example, Fredo, again, another rapper who a few years ago was very active. No, 2017 album, 2018 album, 2019 album, 2021 album, Unfinished Business 2023, and then we've sort of heard nothing. Obviously he had a couple tunes in 2024, but nothing too crazy, nothing that went mega viral, nothing that was really picking up a lot of traction. I actually like this tune, this Let It Go tune off the Pot Paper album. I thought that was a very solid tune. Top G, forgettable tune. But this Unfinished Business project I actually was a really big fan of, but since this 2023, when was this, August 2023, we really haven't heard a lot. So there's a lot of artists who a few years ago were doing their thing and now have sort of disappeared off the face of the earth. I could literally do it here. Nath definitely still active, DB still active, Digga D's in jail. Just under my head here, you got Heady One, obviously Heady One, another one, still active, but he'll definitely be disappointed with how the overall sale of this album went. There was actually a few good tunes on here. Obviously you had Martin Sofa, Cry No More, a lot of tunes which actually did bits, but if you look at the streaming numbers wise, Meek's still active, coming under my head here, Dig That Again in jail, Bando K in jail, K-Trap definitely still active. He's one of the only few, especially in the drill scene, who really managed to keep up momentum in 2024. Smile, this album was good again, but I completely understand why people are saying it's a monopoly, because a lot of the artists who were around 3-4 years ago have sort of disappeared. They have, bro. Nines is retired. M Huncho's definitely still knocking about. I cannot wait for his project in a few weeks. That's going to be sick. Dutch Avelli, don't need to talk about that one. M24, haven't heard a sniff. Unknown T's still been dropping. Swarms, don't need to talk about that one. Blade Brown still been dropping. D-Block still been dropping. We Want Race. Mostack, inconsistent, but he is still sort of dropping. Scraps dropped an album last year. So there is still some competition, but I can completely understand what people mean, because if you took like sort of the top 5, maybe 3-4 years ago, you know, you had like Digga D probably H was probably knocking in there, AJ Tracey, Dave. It's like those sort of names, bro. Not many of them are still consistent, or we haven't had albums for quite a few years. I think it's part of the reason why people are saying that it's becoming the monopoly, and I can completely understand it. Because these big artists haven't been dropping music, it's allowed new artists to come in and take their spot. Streaming numbers, consistency, and just relevancy right now, it's been taken away from the likes of AJ Tracey, whoever else we mentioned there, Fredo, like these guys who haven't been dropping. It's meant that people like Nems, who have been putting in the work, are getting the recognition instead. They're taking the spot on these Rap UK playlists. Perfect place to see it. Like, as we just scroll down, obviously H is relevant again because of the diss track. M Huncho's still knocking about. If you look down here and look how many upcoming artists there are in comparison to big UK artists, it's crazy. I like to see it. I'm glad that these guys are getting recognition. You should get recognition when you're putting out music. Shy Cartier, Ashbeck, 163 Marks, Ants Live, AJ Tracey and Poser, they dropped that one tune. That was definitely a highlight. Blanco, Strands, another one. H again, just because of this Pot of Paper project. He's staying consistent. Pot of Paper deserves all the flowers he gets. Should have definitely been in the Brits nominations, but again, check my video on that if you want to see more about that. But yeah, because these UK rappers haven't been consistent, it's allowed the likes of these new artists to come in and take the spot, and that's what I like. It's been adding a bit more competition, I'd say. Obviously, Cairo Keys, Blanco, Poser, Rushy, all these guys who were consistent last year. Nux, again, still knocking about. Leo Stay Trill, putting out music and staying consistent. They're basically the new generation who are slowly taking place of these old rappers, like the ones I just mentioned. Because they haven't been dropping music, I completely see it. AJ Tracey will be 4 years this year without an album. Dave, 4 years this year without an album. Fredo, 2 years this year without an album. I could sit here all day. Essentially, a lot of the UK rappers aren't dropping music, bro. They are not dropping music, and people who are like Heady One, the albums were fairly forgettable. I feel like people like Heady One and K-Trap were slightly mistreated on the albums. The albums were actually okay. It's just that I don't know who they're signed to. I mean, we can have a look on here. Okay, signed to Sony. I can't remember one piece of promo for that project. I was probably one of the best promos. I posted the clip of the Stormzy verse and got like 2 million views on my TikTok, bro, when this shit dropped. Probably one of the better promos. Like, I really don't remember much of the promo about that or the K-Trap album. And these guys need sort of the marketing, so I don't know if they're not getting the backing from the label or whatever it is. If I compare this to like the US equivalent, obviously we've got like Lil Baby, artists who aren't like GOATs. If you were putting Skepta in sort of like the GOAT category, people like Skepta and Kendrick Lamar and whatever, you're okay with them not dropping music because they're sort of in the GOAT category. But Lil Baby, someone who's popping, trending right now, who was one of the biggest artists in the country in the US a few years ago, you know, this is the sort of artist who I'd be comparing the Fredos and the AJ Traceys and people like that to. And if I just scroll down to albums, just look at the consistency compared to what the UK rappers are doing. 2017, 2018, 2018, 2018, 2020, 2020, 21, 22. Okay, that was obviously a deluxe, but again, 24. You see the consistency. Again, Gunna, another one who was a big artist. Remember, Gunna popped off in like 2018 with Drip Harder, even before with like Drip or Drown. But look at the consistency in comparison to these UK rappers. 2018, 2019, 2020, he had obviously a few features on that, but 2022, 23, 24 managed to stay relevant because he's dropping music. Same with like a 21 Savage, again a big name in the US, managed to stay way more consistent than a lot of these UK rappers. And I don't know what it is. I don't know why a lot of UK rappers are refusing to drop albums or refusing to drop music. I just don't get it. So many of these US artists who popped up around the same time as these UK rappers did, like mainstream wise, 2018, 2020. Look how much more consistent, how many more projects they're putting out. It's the one thing I respect about DBE is the consistency. 2018, 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24. It's not like DBE aren't busy either. These guys are busy guys, man. Okay, I'll admit that the drop off in quality on the last couple albums has been there, but the streaming numbers are still there, so you can't say shit. I might not like the songs, but these are obviously doing well. I'll always back DBE because I respect their work rate. I didn't listen to a lot of this album, I'll be real. The last one I probably listened to was Lap 5, and maybe because they're independent. Is that got anything to do with it, that D Block Europe are independent? I don't know if they're signed to someone on some sort of deal. But to answer the question, is it becoming a monopoly? Partly, yeah. We've got an artist who's bigger than anyone's ever been, but also a lot of these artists who were sort of competition a few years ago just sort of aren't dropping music. They just disappeared off the face of the earth. Why I will never know. I will never know why that is. I'd love for some of them to tell me why they're not dropping music. I'd love to know. Maybe I possibly have to do a deeper dive into that on the YouTube channel. But it's not all doom and gloom, because these artists are sort of not dropping music anymore. It's allowing these newer artists to come through, these newer artists that are taking their spot. And a lot of these artists, I think the big UK rappers, or supposedly sort of like big names, are going to be quite shocked when they come back and release projects, how people might not be as interested as they think they might be, because they're taking these long hiatuses, and a lot of them don't have the fan base or big enough fan bases who care, because all these small artists are coming through who are dropping music. People are sort of jumping ship to new artists. They find new artists to be their favourites, and I think a lot of these UK rappers, I think they might be quite shocked when they come to releasing projects, maybe how underwhelming they're performing. That's not even in the comparison to Central C type thing, because that guy's clear. I'm just talking in comparison to maybe their previous projects, where someone like a DB who's consistently dropping, you know, DBs, whether you like them or not, you can't lie, their fan base is still ride or die for them. Whereas if I asked you another rapper, how's their fan base doing, I can't really think of ones. So